welcome back to My Big Sister podcast. I'm Grace and this is my big sister Josie.
And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about university.
So we're going to be giving you all our big sister advice around going to uni, whether you should go, our own experiences of going to university, and everything fun like that. So I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into the episode. This week's topic I think will be very interesting because I have just graduated uni a few weeks ago and I feel like I have a lot of opinions about this topic, and Josie also went to university. So
a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. For those of you that don't know, Josie is my sister, but she's 9 years older than me.
Yeah.
So we have lots of different life experience.
So I have like the millennial university experience and you have the Gen Z experience, which are very, very different.
So I think we're going to start off talking about both of our own university experiences, and then we're going to go into some questions that you guys had for us. So Josie, why don't you tell me all about your university experience?
I feel like my university experience was like two halves. The first half was I basically just wanted to like escape my parents' house, go live by myself, like pretend I'm a grown up, and just that actually meant just like drinking way too much and like partying almost every night and like not really doing much work. And then the second half I was like, oh my God, I'm paying all this money and I actually need to like focus now. So for like the second half because I had 3 years, so like my second half of second year into third year, I was just like in the library all the time, just like studying really hard. But yeah, it was like two completely different experiences. And I think if I'd go back in time now, I would have probably maybe partied a little bit less, maybe gone to some of the like societies and like figured out like interests beyond just like drinking and partying. And actually like going to my 9 a.m. lectures, maybe that would have been good. But obviously you can only know that in hindsight.
Yeah, I feel like in the UK, a lot of university culture is centered around drinking and partying. Like most people, when I was in school, they would pick the uni based on the nightlife and whether there was good clubs and whether there was good bars in the town where the uni was.
Yeah.
They weren't necessarily picking the university based on like the academic things about it.
Yeah.
Which I think, I mean, when you're 18, so when you're 18 in the UK where we both went to uni, that's the age that you can drink alcohol and like go to clubs and stuff. So you're fresh 18, you go to another town, most people do, and then you're just like allowed to do whatever you want. So I feel like it's kind of inevitable
crazy now that I think about it. Like 18 is so young to just be like suddenly out by yourself, just doing whatever you want.
Yeah, it's really weird how they just kind of send everyone off after their 18th birthday. And Josie's birthday is right at the end of summer, so she was a fresh 18-year-old. You were like 18 on 1 week when you went to uni.
I'd literally hardly been out at all because my past, like I wasn't old enough to go into clubs, and then suddenly I was just at uni thrown into Freshers Week with like all of this craziness going on, and yeah, it was just quite crazy. But I feel like your experience was quite different to mine because you sort of finished your college when it was like 2020, right, when you finished?
Yeah.
So your experience was very like COVID-y online.
Yeah, so a lot of the start of my uni was lockdown. So yeah, I feel like a lot of the socializing you did I kind of missed out on. But you lived in halls, didn't you? How would you describe your so for those of you that don't know, in the UK generally you go and live on campus at the university for the first year, and you get put in random accommodation with random people you don't know, and it's kind of all just a bit like the luck of the draw who you end up with. And then normally people will then find friends in first year, and then for second and third year they'll go and live in houses in the like surrounding area. So how did you find moving in halls? I mean, I remember dropping you off at university. I remember Pixie Lott was playing in the car, All About Tonight.
You always have very specific memories of things.
Yeah, I remember walking up from the car to your accommodation.
It's like Grace has more memories of my starting uni.
And Pixie Lott was playing in the car.
Well, I think my main experience of uni halls was just absolute like madness, like carnage, like people throwing up all the time, like literally we didn't have this in our halls, but some other halls had a whiteboard that had like a chunder chart on it, which was like,
I feel like that's pretty
the
usual.
amount of people who'd thrown up. Like, it's actually disgusting now that I think about it, and like you kind of know that it's gross at the time, but you just laugh it off as like Fanta.
Yeah, I feel like
yeah,
if you're not heavily involved in like the drinking culture in halls especially,
I think it would be quite
it can,
isolating.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know though, when my friends were applying to university, there was an option on some of the unis, like housing forms, if you wanted to be placed in a non-drinking
Oh,
dorm
that's so good.
for like quieter people that don't want to
think
go
that was an option
partying.
for us.
Yeah, I don't know if it's at every university, but definitely
Yeah,
some of the
that's
ones
good.
my friends were applying to,
Yeah.
it was an option. Because I mean, when I think of that now, that sounds like my worst nightmare. But then
Yeah.
again, when I was 18, I did love drinking more and I would go out partying. But if you made me live in a halls now like that, I would not survive more than like 1 week.
Yeah, and it's just very, well, it depends what kind of halls you're in. So I was in a non-catered halls, but we had like a microwave and a fridge, so you could kind of cook, but not really. But then there were non-catered halls where you had to cook everything, and those ones got so dirty and disgusting because everyone was just like cooking, but no one had any like skills of like cleaning or like knew how to tidy things. I feel so sorry for anyone who had to clean, that like cleaners that work in university halls are like, that's probably like the hardest job in the world. Like the things they must see is actually horrific.
A lot of the uni halls I visited, like of my friends going to uni, it was just like, yeah, chaos. Like just like people would be sneezing and snot would go on the floor and you wouldn't even notice because there was so much other grime on the floor. Like people would throw up on the floor and not clean it for days. There was mold in the fridge, like,
or like
just chaos.
Just going around like having like nosebleeds and like just leaving the blood everywhere. Like
Yeah.
it was just like so disgusting. And yeah, like none of this is really related to like studying or anything, but that is my main memory of especially the first year of university. It's just like absolute chaos. And also I don't know, maybe this has changed now, but there was just such a toxic like gender, like just basically the treatment of women and like the treatment of girls and like how boys talked about girls and like how they were treated. It was just like absolutely disgusting. Like there was all these Facebook groups about rating girls and like who's the hottest girls and things like that. Do things like that happen anymore, like in Gen Z, like on TikTok?
I don't think there's Facebook groups.
Well, obviously not
But
Facebook groups.
I do think, yeah, the men at that age are still, yeah. I feel like when boys go to uni at 18, it's like a well-known thing of like Freshers Week. You've got to get with this many girls and everyone's got to be single when they go to Freshers Week because you've got to, or if you're in a relationship, you've got to cheat on your girlfriend.
Okay, so it still happens, because I was
Yeah.
hoping that like Gen Z had somehow seen the error of the
No,
millennials'
I feel
ways.
like I've definitely heard of like friends who in their halls there's a boy with a girlfriend back home, and then every night he would have a different girl around and no one would tell the girlfriend.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it's just obviously how young you are. I think that's the main kind of factor to all of that. And the fact that you feel like you have this freedom you've never had and you've got no consequences of any actions. Like, even if you make a mess in the kitchen, it's not like your mum's there to tell you off. Like, there's no one to tell you off for things.
And like, especially in first year, I don't know if this is true in other unis or it might not be true around the world, but we pretty much just had to pass. Like, it didn't really matter what grade you got. So
I think in the UK, yeah, you just have to get 40%.
So you could honestly just like completely mess around and still be fine. Like, I got a first and I completely messed around in first year. I hardly went to any lectures. And like, I just wasn't focused on my studies at all. I barely read any of the books. It was just crazy, but somehow I still managed to do well in the end. But I feel like if maybe you're forced from like first year to actually focus, maybe that would help.
But yeah, I think it is crazy, like, that most of your memories from uni, like, you haven't even said anything about the studying. How did you find the studying? Like, so what did you study at uni?
So I did English and comparative literature, which English literature, and then comparative literature is like comparing, it's kind of like studying text and translation. So I studied texts from like different languages. I don't actually speak any other languages, but luckily I could look at them in translation, so learn about like French poetry and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Once I actually got out of like the fully partying thing and like actually was like, oh, maybe I should go to a lecture or a seminar, I might actually enjoy that, then I did actually start to really enjoy it. And Yeah, I just wish that I'd like focused a bit earlier and like I could have got a lot more out of it. But again, I think I'm just looking at it with my adult brain now. Yeah.
I feel like one thing that no one tells you or prepares you for university is that the way of learning is so different to like A levels or school, whatever you were doing beforehand. Because at least for me in the UK, when you're doing your GCSEs or your A level exams, you spend 2 whole years at school revising these subjects. You learn all this information, you have to revise it, remember it, and that final exam tests you on all of that stuff you've learned in the past 2 years. So the whole 2 years, every single lesson, I'm writing stuff down, I'm memorizing, I'm practicing the same knowledge that I've been taught, and like practicing essays in the same questions for 2 whole years. So when I was at university, I went to my first lecture and I was like, right, I've got my iPad, I'm going to make amazing revision notes, like I need to remember this, like everything he's telling me right now, I'm going to need this knowledge, we've got 3 years, I need to remember all of
Very
this.
Very different to what I was doing in first year.
Yeah, well see, I was a very studious first year student, and I had all my pretty notes and I was like, right, I was making these amazing notes. And then when it came to the end of the first term, when I had finished that module and I'd done my essays on that subject, which the notes did help, I then was like, okay, went into January and started new topics. And I was like, well, none of these modules are anything to do with what I've learned in first term.
Yeah.
And I will never need those notes ever again. Whereas I'd been taught to like remember everything, every lesson is important, it's all going to be in the final exam at the end of the 2-year period. Whereas in uni, you do a module, you have exams on that module, and then you can just forget it and you won't need that knowledge.
Yeah, I think the difference is that it's like in school, it's all about basically memorization. It's like who has the best memory will do the best. But then at university, it's not actually about remembering it. It's more about like whether your brain can adapt to figuring out these different ideas and like how well you are at like reasoning and rationalizing. I mean, and just like those other kind of more like higher level skills that are beyond just like how much stuff can you remember for an exam.
Yeah, because I was like, thought I was going to nail it. I was like, I know how to study. Like I've been doing this for like 4 years at this point. I know exactly how to do well in exams and essays. And then I was like, wait, no, this is completely different. Like it's such a different way of learning. I think it's actually maybe similar to how Americans have their school years, where they do topics and then they get the credits per kind of subject like earlier on. I believe that's how they do it in the American school system, so maybe it's more similar there. But for the UK, it was such a different style of learning to how I'd been like brought up to do stuff.
And so what do you think you had to learn? Like what advice would you say to someone who is going to uni, like about how to learn? Like what would they have to adjust, do you think?
I mean, I guess it differs per every degree, but my degree was quite like essay based. So I would say the main thing I had to learn at university was just how to write like a convincing argument in an essay, and also referencing your points. I'd never done that before.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And
everyone's
the lecturers,
like, how do you do that?
Yeah, the lecturers were like, just make sure you Harvard reference. And we're like,
although now you could probably just ask ChatGPT to write it in a Harvard reference style.
Well, I don't think you should be using ChatGPT.
Well, just for your references.
You will get kicked out of uni.
For your references, you could.
No, but ChatGPT makes up stuff.
But if you're like, this is my reference, this is the book, write it in Harvard reference style.
Well, you could
do that.
You can use, there's websites for that, like Cite This for me. That's what I used to use. You put a link to a PDF and it will give you the citation, and it will give you the in-text and the end of essay citation.
And this is things that you'll never ever need ever again.
Yeah,
that's what I found now, is like you're saying that and I like vaguely remember what you're talking about, but I've never had to use it ever since. So aside from the differences with like how you learn, what was the kind of social side of your uni experience like?
So I didn't move out to go to university. I feel like when I was posting about uni online, a lot of people didn't even realise I was at university because I wasn't living in like a student halls. But the reason I didn't want to live in a student halls was because I had grown up seeing my 2 sisters live in these horrible horrible places with so much mess and so much dirt. And one thing about me is I love a clean space. I can't cook in a kitchen that is messy. I'm basically Monica from Friends, and I had seen how disgusting both my sister's uni places were, and I had also seen some of my friends. So I decided I did not want to live in those conditions.
Well, that's like younger sister privilege, as you
I saw your mistakes.
Yeah, you live through you see them and then you're like, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, so I knew that I didn't want to live in uni halls, I think, when I was applying. So I applied to universities that were like near where I lived, so I knew I could like commute. So I applied to a few universities, some that I was like driving distance to, and then some that were in London because I could easily get to London. And I ended up deciding on a place that was in Holborn in London, so like very central, like right near Covent Garden, very central London. But when I first applied to universities, it was before lockdown, and then by the time I got around to about to start my A-levels in March of 2020, it was suddenly locked down and our A-levels were suddenly cancelled. So no one really knew what was going on. Like, no one knew if universities were going to be open in that September. No one knew if we were going to get our A-level like predicted grades, whether we'd have to resit them. No one really knew what was going on. So at that time, I made the decision to defer my place. So I had a place at the university I was wanting to go to, and they were expecting me in September 2020. And I said to them, I want to move my place to September 2021. So that's what I did. I deferred my place for a year. So I'd got in, I had my spot, and then that meant I had another year to kind of figure things out, because first of all, we didn't even know if universities were going to be open by then, and the thought of paying like the fees, like £9,000 a year, and getting in student debt and not even being able to go,
which by the way is absolutely insane. Like, my fees were 3,000 and something a year, and I thought that was ridiculous.
I know, and to pay 9,000 and to not be physically going to lectures is crazy.
Do you feel like COVID almost like made you think that the whole thing was a bit of a joke? Like, I feel like if that happened to me, I'd just be like, what is reality? Like, because I was so like, I took my A-levels so seriously, and I feel like if someone was just like, haha, jokes, you can just have this fake thing that's not actually based on an exam, I'd be like, what is life?
Yeah, being in year 13 in 2020 was crazy because we'd spent the past almost 2 years studying. I was so set on you have to get these certain grades to get into university, and so many of my friends they needed these grades to get to their dream university they've been dreaming of their whole life. And then it was suddenly like the rug was taken under from us, and we were like, no one knew the answer. No one knew if we were going to get our predicted grades. They thought maybe we would sit the exams or we'd sit them virtually. People were saying like, still do your coursework. Like, the teachers were emailing us, carry on doing your coursework, carry on revising, because we don't know if you are going to be sitting those exams. Because at first people thought COVID would be like a 2-week thing, we'd be back at school. So at first I was still at home revising during lockdown, and I was finishing off my English coursework I had.
When were your exams supposed to be in 2020?
So they were meant to be in May, like the start of May.
Oh my god, that is a crazy time to have to do, like, go through all of that.
Yeah, so no one really knew what was going on, and then suddenly it was announced that the schools wouldn't open by May, and they decided that everyone would get their predicted grades, basically. Well, so at first the government announced that they would have this system to work out. It's sort of like they used the predicted grades and then they used other things from teachers. So I remember at the time our teachers were like, send us any evidence you have, like send us all the essays you've written, send us your revision, so they could like work out what grade we should have got. So they used this system that was like a mix of predicted grades and your teacher ranking you. So I remember...
Did you feel like that was fair?
Not really. So what they did, if you were in... So what they did for A-levels in 2020 was they made everyone's teachers rank the classes. So, for example, my business class, and I'm sure people in my class don't mind me saying this, I remember we worked out the ranking because they were only allowed to give a certain amount of people a star in the class, and a certain amount of people an A, a certain amount of people a B. So between me and my friends, we worked out our ranking of the class because my friend Joe got an A star, I got an A star, my friend Tia got an A, I think. So we could like work out exactly where we were ranked in the class by who got what grade. And then, yeah, it was just like really weird how it was kind of like up to our teachers what grades to give us.
Yeah, that's not how it usually goes. And then you feel like, is there any like bias here? Like, if they have favourites?
Some people like don't turn up to class, but then they do really well in an exam. So it's really unfair on those people who might, or if you were ill for a lot of your A levels and you weren't seeing the teachers, they don't know that you're good, then you're given your grade and you might have performed way better in the actual exams. So a lot of people were kind of treated unfairly in those circumstances. A lot of people I know didn't get their place, that they really believed they would have got those grades, but they weren't given those grades by the teachers. So they missed out on going to their dream university because of lockdown.
Oh my God.
But then a lot of people who thought they did better in their mock exams and their predicted grades were higher than they were thinking they'd get actually did better. Like, I don't know. I would say I was good at business, but I don't know if I would have got an A star in the exam. You don't know what's going to happen on an exam day. You could just mess it up and you could be ill and not be able to do it properly. So for me, I was actually quite happy with how my grades ended up because my predicted grades were kind of average, if not a bit higher than maybe what I thought I would have got. So I was happy and I got into the university I wanted to go to. But again, I know so many people that didn't. So yeah, it was just a really weird time. And I mean, you can't really blame the government because it was such a weird time that no one knew what was going on. But I think they definitely could have handled things a bit better. I think universities should have been a bit more lenient that year and let people in with slightly lower grades.
It makes you think now that this has happened, they probably do have like an emergency plan in place with schools, like if this happens again, because it probably is likely that there'll be some kind of pandemic probably in our lifetime again. So like, I guess up until now they didn't really have to like think about it. The last time it probably happened was like Spanish flu. When was that?
Or like in the World War.
Long time ago.
So yeah, basically I deferred my place at university after all of that stress because I was like, I just do not want to commit myself to that for 3 years right now when I had no idea what was going on in the world. And I had a place at a uni in central London. Central London was like on lockdown. You couldn't get there. So I was like, well, I'm not going to agree to be doing online classes. I was living with my parents and I was like, I just don't think I can do like university online, like in my small little bedroom. I just couldn't do it. So I deferred my place for a year. I was a key worker in lockdown. I was working in Sainsbury's. I was working at a school. I was working at a leisure centre when it was open. It kept opening and shutting again and opening and shutting again. And in that year, I feel like I did grow up a bit. So when I eventually went to uni at the end of that year, I was 19, which is still so young when I look back. But I'm glad I had that year break. Yeah. Because 18 is just so young. Like, you were 16 2 years ago. Like, it's so young. So I was 19 when I eventually went to university. And what I found going to university in 2021, was that the majority of my class had also done a gap year for the exact same reasons. So I was worried at first that I might feel like the old one, but actually almost everyone at my uni was 19, apart from like a handful of people.
I wonder if that in itself changed the experience a bit, just that in general more people were a year older. Because I feel like you do grow up a lot in that year. And I don't know, when I meet your uni friends, I'm like, you guys all seem so like you have everything together. Like all your uni friends seem so like grown up and like mature. And I'm like, I swear my uni friends were not like this.
Yeah. I think also though, because I go to uni in central London, the majority of people I went to uni with didn't move out and they all lived at home and commuted. So university did feel more like a job because we were all commuting to central London.
And it was a business school as well. So.
Yeah, and my uni just did business degrees. So everyone was kind of a bit kind of grown up.
Businessy.
Yeah, because everyone was like interested in business and we all like just commuted. So there wasn't as much chance for partying. Yeah. So the social life at my uni was not great. We didn't have any societies. There was no student union.
Really?
Because it was just like in an office block in central London, my university basically. There was no like bar, there was no cafe at first. I think they put a cafe in second year, but there was basically no kind of social space for us to hang out.
I spent my whole life in the Students' Union bar.
Yeah, so it's a very different experience going to uni in central London than going to like a campus uni in the UK. But we would still find time to drink. We would go to like the local Wetherspoons. We would go to, a lot of my friends lived in Wembley at the time, and we would go to Wembley Box Park. We would go to like quiz night every Tuesday. So I did have a lot of fun nights out, and I think for me, one night out a week is enough. Even at that age, that was enough. Like, I feel like when you were at uni, or at least my friends I know that lived in campus, it was every night.
Yeah.
Every single night. You'd wake up drunk and then keep drinking.
It was like minimum 5 nights a week.
That's insane.
I know.
Because I get so hungover now, I can't function for like a week.
I know. I don't know. Maybe it's the extra year of age.
Of youth.
You just can't, like when you're 18, you can just, basically your body is like indestructible. Like,
yeah, you can just keep going.
But now I do look back at that time and I'm like, you know, some of the health things that I have now of like my back, or like there's just so many things. And I actually wrote an article about this once, maybe I'll link to it in the show notes, of just like alcohol and how you don't sort of realize when you're young how it can affect you health wise. Obviously everyone knows it's not good for you, but because it's so normalized in our culture, it's easy to forget that and just brush it off, but actually it's like, so damaging to your body.
I would be like binge drinking. I mean, I would only do it once a week, max twice a week when I was at uni, but like, yeah, my friends that went to campus unis, they would be binge drinking, and by that I mean like 15 units, like 20 units, like a whole bottle of vodka some nights, and then the next night the exact same again. And I just don't know how their bodies didn't shut down after that.
And I mean, I'm not saying I don't drink at all now. Like, I definitely still do drink, probably more than you, definitely more than you.
I don't really ever drink now.
But just, yeah, now it's like maybe once a week, or like
and
a
you'll
few
have
glasses
like
of wine.
5, yeah.
It'll be like, if I have a drink like with dinner, it'll be like 2 glasses of wine, or maybe 3 at the most. But like, yeah, at uni it would be vodka. We used to have squashka, which is like orange squash or whatever flavor squash you wanted, mixed with water, like squash, water and vodka. Squashka. Give it a try if you've never tried it.
Yeah, well, when I was at uni, we used to go to the local Lidl in Wembley before quiz, and I would buy the cheapest wine. I don't like wine, but it was the cheapest drink in Lidl, and it was £2 for a whole bottle of wine, and I'd drink like 2 of those for pre-drinks, and then we'd go out.
Yeah, you hate wine.
I hate wine. I mean, it was just juice. It was like 5% alcohol. It was basically like Echo Falls, but like the Lidl version. And it was £2, and I'd drink that, and then just drink like endless amounts. And I don't remember ever being that hungover. Yeah. Whereas now, if I have 3 drinks, I feel hungover the next day.
Well, yeah, the other day we were supposed to be recording the podcast, but I'd had a bit too much to drink. I hadn't even had that much, but I was like, sorry, we're going to have to do a different day.
I think it generally does affect older people more because, I mean, older people, I'm only 22, but it affects me so much more than it used to.
It definitely has gotten worse. And also, obviously, if you drink more regularly, then your body just builds up a tolerance to it. Yeah. But because I drink less in general now, when I do drink more, my body's like, what is this poison you put in?
Yeah, alcohol is literally poison. Like, it's kind of scary when you think about it. And I think that's why I've stopped drinking as much, because I just don't like the way it's like changing your brain and changing how you act, and like it can have like more permanent effects on your brain, especially if you're drinking that much. Like,
I think the thing for me is just to like do it because I like actually enjoy like the taste of it, and like, you know, I enjoy having a nice glass of wine. You wouldn't understand this because you don't even like wine or beer. I don't like
the taste of any alcohol.
Like, there's nothing better than a Guinness in a pub.
Ew.
But you probably would.
I don't like the taste of any alcohol.
So it makes sense why you don't like drinking.
It tastes like hand sanitizer to me.
If that was me, then I probably wouldn't drink. But I actually enjoy the taste of it. So, and you know, I don't know. But I still drink so much less than when I was at uni. That was just ridiculous.
I mean, for me, like if I'm at dinner with friends, I would way rather have a mocktail than a cocktail, because to me a cocktail tastes gross. Even a really nice one, it's nice.
Even like a mojito?
No, horrible. I hate that. A virgin mojito, delicious. Love it. I could drink 5 of them.
What about like a sex on the beach? Like really sweet.
They all still have, if it's like a strong cocktail, like at a restaurant, it's not nice. Okay. It's like I'm forcing myself, and then I'm eating a nice food, and then I'm drinking this horrible drink for no reason, because I'm not even going to get drunk because I'm eating a meal.
This makes so much sense why you don't drink if you really hate the taste of alcohol that much. That's actually quite good. That's like a superpower. I think most people would wish that they had that.
But it tastes like hand sanitizer.
It tastes good.
I don't understand how anyone likes the taste of alcohol.
Do you like olives?
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like you don't have such a babyish palate that you don't like olives.
I like olives. I don't like alcohol. Okay. I don't like pickles. I don't like mustard.
I like pickles. Pickles are good.
Have you seen those dirty martinis people have been making on TikTok?
With pickle juice?
They put pickle juice, olive oil.
Olive oil?
They put salt on top. And what did someone do? Parmesan. Yeah, in a martini. It's like a savoury cocktail.
That's wrong.
But I quite like the sound of that, even though I don't like any of those ingredients.
But wouldn't the parmesan just feel like chunky and like floating on the top?
Like grated, like
I feel like
as a little garnish.
I feel like it would turn into a clump, and then you'd just be like sucking the parmesan.
Cheesy.
I can't think of what that would be like. But I do like Bloody Mary, which is a savoury drink.
I don't like that.
That's nice.
I don't like any alcohol. I like some cocktails because I like the things in it that isn't the alcohol part, and if it's not too strong, I can. What
about like a cider, a very sweet cider?
I can drink it, but I'd much rather have a Coke. Almost, there's no alcohol I would choose over a soft drink.
That makes it very hard to buy you presents, because, sometimes the default is just to buy someone alcohol.
Yeah, I have a lot of wine on my bar cart because people always bring a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
I put it in my spag bowl. That's what I do.
Oh, yeah,
if
that's
anyone
a good idea.
ever buys me a bottle of red wine, I really appreciate it because I put it in my cooking.
Or you could just give it to me.
Or I can give it to Josie. I normally put it in my spag bowl or my chili. That's what I do with it. I don't drink it.
Okay.
But I appreciate it. Anyone that's brought me wine.
This is awkward now if someone's watching this and has bought you a wine.
But I feel like if someone knows me enough, they wouldn't get me wine. So
True.
it can't be that offensive. Yeah. It's more offensive if you do buy me wine because I don't like it.
Should we go on to questions from the audience?
Yes, let's see what the listeners asked us all about university. The first one was, how do you make friends at university?
Ooh, well, I guess this kind of depends on whether you're in halls or if you're living at home. But I think the key is, this is advice I wish I'd taken, and that is to figure out what you're interested in and maybe go and join some of the societies that are related to those things. I personally was too shy and nervous to do that when I was at uni. I didn't join any societies, but now looking back, I'm like, that would have been cool if I could have met people who were interested in things that I like, or maybe I could have joined the student newspaper or something like that.
I think for me, because there wasn't any societies like that at uni, I mean, my university was very small. There was 100 of us in my year. So I turned up to the first day of uni in London. I was wearing this really fashionable, I thought at the time it was fashionable outfit. I was trying to be a fashion cool London girly.
Yeah.
I was wearing this red leather blazer, vinyl leather from Motel. I was wearing these Motel low-waisted jeans.
Do you have a photo of this?
And a little top. Yes, I do.
We can post it.
And so I was wearing, this red. I never wear red. Have you seen me wear red in my life? Wearing this outfit with a cool bag, funny shoes. I turn up and there was a queue of people to get into the building because if you remember, this was in 2021 and it was during when it was still kind of locked down, kind of not. So we had to sign in every time we went into class. We had to sign in for the COVID tracking thing to when they would trace back if someone you knew had COVID. So I was queuing up to sign in on my first day and I just turned to the girl next to me and was like, hello. Because I feel like you have to just go for it, because if you're shy and just stand in a corner, you just won't talk to anyone, which won't be fun. And it doesn't make you weird, especially when it's the first week or even the first year of university.
Everyone is in the same headspace.
Yeah, probably the girl staring at you that you're thinking, oh my God, she's staring at me. She's probably thinking, oh my God, I want to make friends with her, but I don't know how to go up to her. So I think I know it's so much easier said than done, but just find someone that looks friendly and go up and be like, hi, what's your name? Or I always think it's good to go in with a compliment.
Yeah.
So if you like their outfit, go in and say, oh my God, I love your outfit. Where's it from? Or your hair's so nice. Like, how do you curl? Like, think of, you know, find someone that looks interesting, or there's something you want to ask them, and go and ask them.
And there will be people that you don't necessarily gel with, but then there will be people that you really do gel with. And I feel like that same kind of thing happened with my friend. I don't know if that girl, you actually became friends with her. Yeah. So like the same thing happened with when I was in halls, and like I remember like I'd met a few people and there was a few slightly odd people, and I was like, oh no, like is this gonna be okay? Like who are these people? And then like I just remember my best friend walked down the stairs, and I was like, she's going to be my friend. And I just knew, and I was like, hello. And she was like, hello. And then we just became friends like straight away. And I feel like that is, one of the real benefits of uni is like everyone's looking to make friends. So it's kind of the perfect time to like, just don't worry too much about, seeming cool, or like, because I did that thing as well of like, gotta get all my outfits ready, and like had been shopping on ASOS to be like uni outfit ready, but like no one cares really.
I feel like when you, especially you moving away, when you move away to university, you might feel like you can kind of like reinvent yourself, which I think is why people like, it's your chance to get new outfits. And if in school you were the shy person who had boring clothes, no one knows you at uni. You could pretend this your whole life. You've been this cool girl who's really loud and has these cool clothes. And it's like, you could literally become a whole new person, and no one will like know that wasn't you your whole life.
I think it's fine if you're just trying to be like, maybe a more confident version of yourself. But if you find yourself like acting like a completely different person, maybe take a step back and be like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I trying to get across?
Yeah,
like,
you don't want to make friends as like this persona and then
have to keep up that persona for like 3 years, and then
it's like, have you watched Fresh Meat?
Yeah, I love
like,
Fresh Meat.
Who's the girl in it who's like pretends she doesn't have a car?
Oh, Oregon
on Fresh Meat, and she's like trying to fit in, but then everything she says is like
she
not
is
true.
So like that,
So I feel like
don't be an Oregon.
But that is a good recommendation if you are going to uni in the UK. I feel like a really good series that is pretty like reflective of the UK uni experience would be Fresh Meat.
Although I think if I'd watched that before I went to uni, I would have been really scared because there's some weird things that happen in that show.
But it's quite realistic. I feel like I watched that, and that's probably another reason why I didn't want to go to halls, and that worked out great for me. So but that's our question of how we think you can make friends. Just always go for it, especially in the first year or few weeks. Everyone else is looking to make friends as well. Someone asked, do you think it's a good idea to save money to take a gap year and travel instead of going straight into post-secondary institution after high school? I definitely think that is a great idea. I personally, as I said, did a gap year. Now, I couldn't travel in my gap year because it was locked down, but I was hoping I could at some point, but I didn't know how long lockdown would go on, and it eventually took over my whole gap year. But for me, that gap year in between school and university, I worked, I had 3 jobs, and I also was starting my social media channels. So during that year, I saved up so much money. I mean, obviously, luckily, I was able to live at home with my parents during that time, which not everyone can do. But because I could, I was saving up all my money, and also I started my social media, which is now my full-time job. So it really, like, if I hadn't have took that gap year, we wouldn't be
sitting here right now.
I wouldn't be filming the podcast. Like, there's so many little things that the gap year made me feel more confident. I had a better financial backing. I had more money, so when I was going into university, I could afford my train fare into London, and I could afford to go on these nights out. So for me personally, my gap year was like one of the best decisions. I think at the time I was worried about feeling a bit like left out or like left behind.
I think that's why I didn't do that, because all of my friends from school were just going straight into uni, so I just didn't want to feel like I was left behind. But I think what I eventually realised is that you do keep some of your friends from school, but actually, now that I think about it, for me, more of my friends that I currently have and see regularly are actually uni friends. So I don't think it matters too much. I mean, obviously you don't want to feel like completely separate from your school friends, but basically just don't put so much importance on keeping up with what your school friends are doing, because a lot of them you probably end up losing touch with anyway, and you're going to make new friends wherever you are. So,
and I mean, for me, I'm still friends with a lot of my school friends, but what I realised was even the friends that went to uni and like went and left me when I was stuck at home during my gap year, most of them, some of them were doing a year in business, some of them were doing a year abroad, some of them failed and had to retake, some of them dropped out. So this year when I graduated was the same year a lot of my friends graduated,
because
or some
there's
of
always
them
things that happen along the way.
or someone hasn't graduated. So like I'm no like further back in life on the fact that I did a year out. I'm no like behind my classmates, and even if I was like 3 years on, you're really not going to be comparing yourself to people from school anymore. Like the people that matter and the people that you're friends with, you're going to stay friends with, you're going to want to contact them, you can go visit them at uni. And I think I was just lucky in the fact that I could visit my friends, and I stayed quite close friends with a lot of my school friends, and they all, most of them were doing 4-year degrees, so I didn't feel like I was like I was late to the party.
And I think the benefits of being a bit more mature probably means that you'll like pick better friends, or like know a bit more what you want, know what you're interested in, and like
also I can write my essays better because I'm older and I have more like life experience.
And just I guess being a bit more mature of like taking your work a bit more seriously and things. So I would actually recommend it for anyone who's wondering.
I really don't see a downside. Obviously, it comes down to a lot of financial things, but if you're able to, I don't see a downside in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's like, you can go to uni at any age. Also, you don't just have to take one gap year. One of my friends didn't go to uni and didn't think she wanted to, and just now has started a degree apprenticeship, and now she's going to get a degree, but it's a whole different route to what she thought she would ever be doing. And that's like 4 years on from finishing school. So you just never know like what you're going to end up doing. So I think giving yourself time to breathe and time to kind of process that whole school experience, I think there's no reason not to do one if you're able to. Someone asked, I feel like this is more a question for me. Sorry, Josie. Someone said, did you find it easy to settle in university, or were people always asking you for photos and stuff because of your social media?
No one was asking me for photos.
Yeah, Josie. Social media didn't exist when you were at university.
Instagram literally came out when I started university. So.
Which I think is crazy. So for those of you that don't know, I started uni, so I started posting in lockdown on my social media. So when I started university, I think I had 40,000 Instagram followers, which at the time that was crazy to me. Like when I hit 10,000 followers on Instagram, I was like, whoa.
40 is still crazy.
Yeah, 40 is a lot of people. Like if you imagine,
have a whole business on Instagram with 40,000 followers.
Yeah. So I went into uni, but obviously, I really appreciated those 40,000, but obviously that isn't like massive numbers. Like it's not like you're like a household name with 40,000 followers.
You're not having people come up to you on the street.
No. So when I was at uni, I just was I didn't really mention it. If someone asked me what my job was, I think I did tell like the friends I made, like, oh yeah, I have my own like social media business, but I'm always very vague about it. Even now, like I feel embarrassed to be like, vague. I'm an influencer.
Yeah.
I feel like when anyone asks me what I do, I'm like, I'm a content creator. I might say like I own a social media business in content creation, and it sounds like I do OnlyFans. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with OnlyFans, but
well, you kind of say like, oh, I do social media marketing or something like that.
Yeah, I'm very vague about it because I just feel embarrassed. And also then a stranger that I've just met can like look me up, go on YouTube and see videos of me in my pajamas, like in my bedroom. Like it's just a bit intimate for someone I've just met, for them to be able to watch my whole life.
Even though strangers are doing that. Someone you absolutely don't know, that's quite weird, isn't it?
But I feel like it's someone that knows you in real life is weirder. Like when someone that I'm friends with brings up something I've mentioned in a YouTube video, I'm like, how did you know that?
I feel like I do that all the time, and you're just like, what?
I'm like, how did you know that? And it's like, oh my god, people I know in real life are watching these too. But so at the time I had 40,000 followers, so no one recognized me from uni. Like I feel like it was quite a niche kind of audience, and no one that I was going to uni with like followed me. So I kept it pretty low key, and then obviously as I was going through uni in the 3 years I was there, I was growing my following. But no one was ever weird about it. Like, I don't think anyone really brought it up to me. The only times it was brought up at university was by lecturers. So I think someone, or like I might have mentioned it, because a lot of my assignments were about marketing, because I did a marketing degree. So a lot of them were talking about social media marketing and using influencers. So of course I'm like, when we're in class and the teacher's like,
here's a case study.
Yeah,
right
the teacher's
here.
like, oh, does anyone know how much followers a micro influencer is versus a macro influencer? I'm going to be like, yes, I know. Like, and I was like answering a lot of the questions. And then at some point the lecturer was like, Grace, why do you know so much about this?
I'm actually a macro influencer.
So at some point the lecturers like knew, because I was obviously like very knowledgeable in the subject, and in my like essays and stuff I would mention it. So then it would always be brought up, especially by this one teacher. I don't think he knew much about social media himself, so I was like the go-to person in class to ask. Like, we'd be sat in class. One thing though, I don't know if this is like all universities, no one speaks in class. No one speaks. The lecturer will ask a question. Yeah. No one speaks, and they're like, anyone,
yeah,
help me out here, guys.
Especially
like,
if it's like 9 a.m.
Are you guys awake? And then it's like, and then he'd be like, Grace, you know the answer to this. So I feel like I was always answering questions in class, and he'd be like, so Grace, so how much do you charge for an Instagram reel? And I'd be like,
that's a bit personal.
Yeah. So I feel like
Did you answer it?
I would just be vague.
I feel like that's quite rude. That's like basically being like, Grace, what's your, like, how much do you get paid at your job? Like, yeah. You can't just ask that.
It would be in context, like, if we're doing a project and we have to plan out a budget for our marketing budget, he doesn't know how much influencers charge.
That's a little bit weird.
Yeah, I know. But, so yeah, that's the really only time it was brought up, mainly by the lecturers. Do
you feel like your degree, going to business school, helped you run your online business?
Yes. I think yes and no. I think the main kind of time that I learned about businesses and the different kind of types of businesses and how you earn money and how you pay tax was actually in my A-levels. When I was doing business studies at A-level, I had a really great A-level business teacher, and he was so great, and I really enjoyed the lessons. And I was so sad when it got cut short in lockdown, because it was like my favorite subject. It was like I'd finally found something I was like really good at, and that A-level studying taught me so much, like taught me about all the different company types, how to pay taxes, what VAT is. So then by the time I got to uni, actually they were teaching us a lot of the same stuff I already knew. So a lot of the people at my uni didn't do business studies A-level, so they were kind of just teaching us what...
How did they get into a business school if they didn't do business studies A-level?
Well, a lot of sixth forms don't offer business studies, yeah. So I actually think A-level business was the thing that made me good at running a business and running my social medias pages. I don't think it really was university, because in university I kind of had most of that kind of knowledge, and it was more like at uni I was taught how to write an essay about that subject, but I already knew all the like facts about it.
Maybe everyone who wants to run a business should just like buy a course book for A-level business.
I still use mine now. When my accountant rings me and asks me questions, I'm like, one sec, what's VAT? And I read the page and I'm like, cool, I understand.
Oh my god, I need to get to reading your textbooks, because I know nothing about this.
Yeah, during my degree I was using my A-level textbooks for like the different theories. Like I would use that because it was really useful. Like I really recommend business A-level. If anyone wants to do it at A-level, I really recommend. I really enjoyed it.
I just remember, because I did business A-level, and all I remember...
Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I did business A-level, and I had to make a project about Thorpe Park, and we had to like design a roller coaster or something. It was so random.
That's weird.
I don't know how that was related to business.
So someone said, what was your graduation project, the title of your topic? So I assume they mean your dissertation. That's what they call it in the UK. They said, did you have supervisors? How did you get started with it? I need to start graduating, but I need motivation.
I'm just like trying to remember
what yours was. Yeah.
I don't think I had like one dissertation.
So they called it a final project. So it was like worth more than all the other modules that year. And yeah, it was just, we got to pick any topic we wanted. It could be literally about anything, and then write 10,000 words, I think it was, about it, and do like research on the topic. So I did mine on social media marketing, of course. And I did it all about whether brands should pay influencers and whether or not...
Bit self-serving.
Yeah, it was about like...
Should brands pay influencers lots of money?
It was
yes,
like...
that's the answer.
Should influencers... Like, is it worth spending money on influencers versus spending your marketing budget on traditional advertising methods? So I did like research. I like interviewed people in the industry, and like I did a poll on my Instagram story as one of my methods of data collection. So yeah, literally, if anyone answered my Instagram poll last like March, you were written to my dissertation. So yeah, that's what my topic was on. I feel like I didn't get too much help with it because I feel like it was like something I knew lots about. I did get some help on like the referencing stuff because that always confused me still till the last year of university. But yeah, that was my final project. So what was yours on? Do you know?
So I think I didn't have like one dissertation. I just had quite a few different like longer essays, but I actually found my essay, the essay that I got the highest grade. I got like 81 on one of them, which was like really high, and I was like, whoa. And I found it the other day when I was going through some stuff at mum and dad's house, and I was reading it like, this person is so clever. Like,
how did I write this?
This is so interesting, and like, yeah, like I've never thought about that before. And then I was like, wait, I literally wrote this, but I just feel like I finished uni and all of that information just left my brain.
Blanked out.
Yeah. And I just do not remember it at all. But anyway, it was about like hauntology and...
What's that, like ghosts?
So it's kind of like this... I feel like I can't even explain it because it's so smart that I don't really know how to explain it. But basically it was like looking at how like vinyl records are in novels, or like how something's recorded, and how like the ghost of someone of like the past can like come through into the present, and like the layers of memory, and whether even if someone's dead or something's happened in the past, it can still be present in the current like...
Well, that is way more complex than my dissertation was.
Yeah, so it was very like
Smart.
Abstract and kind of crazy, and yeah, and then I did some Shakespeare and you know,
you can tell Josie's
sort of
like
stuff.
the smarter sister. Mine was like TikTok, and yours is like oh.
Yeah.
Someone said, this is again for me, sorry, this isn't really about being in uni, but what are your plans now that you've finished? So for those of you that don't know, I finished uni this summer and I graduated in November. So yeah, graduation was crazy. Like Josie came to my graduation and it was really weird because I obviously finished my exams like in May time, and then I had to wait like 6 months for my graduation. And now that I've graduated and I've been out of uni for quite a few months, it's weird because it's like everyone's on different paths. That's what I find really strange. When you're in school, it's like, okay, you do your GCSEs, then you do your A-levels, and like there's a set thing, and every single person your age, even if they're not at your school, they're doing the same things. Everyone in the country basically is doing the same plan. Whereas when you finish uni, it's like endless possibilities. There's endless countries you could travel to, there's endless jobs you could do, there's so many different things you could end up doing. And like I find it weird how when I see like my friends that I went to uni with, like this time last year we were all doing the same thing, we were all in the same place, whereas now I'm like, okay, this person's here, this person's traveling, this person's moved out.
Do you feel like there's quite a lot of pressure to know what you want to do, or do you feel like people still think like, oh, I've got a few years to figure it out? Or
I think a lot of my friends have no idea what they're doing also, which makes me feel better. Like obviously some of my friends have got like grad jobs and they're like moving to London and they've got sort of stuff sorted, but then a lot of my friends also have like gone back to their like weekend jobs that they had before uni, and they're like figuring things out. So I don't feel too like rushed, and the fact that I do have a job, like I'm self-employed now, makes me feel a bit put together in a way that I have something to focus on. But I think it is just such a weird time, and like when you started that uni experience, you were like 18 or 19, or like you were a teenager, and now you're like a fully formed adult, and it's like, okay, what do we do now?
So much that happens is just so random. Like I used to work as a receptionist in a golf club. That was what I was doing like around the time I finished uni. And then I just thought I was going to just work there, save up a bit of money and go traveling. I wanted to go traveling to Australia. But then my mum just randomly found an job ad in the newspaper for a job at the local newspaper, and I just applied for that and I just got that, and then that's how I started off in my job. But like that, I wasn't really planning on doing that. It was just completely random, and I just feel like, yeah, especially when you're that age, things can just sort of happen a bit randomly, and that's okay. Like you don't have to have a really clear plan, and things will probably just fall into place eventually.
Yeah, I feel like there's no rush, and yeah, everyone's in the same boat, and you also all have a million possibilities. So, and I think even now, a lot of my friends might have been out of uni for like a year now. That everyone's in so different places. Like every year when I see my friends at Christmas, like when everyone comes back to our hometown for Christmas, everyone's doing such different stuff everyone's doing so much different stuff than they were the previous year. Like every year of your 20s, everyone's doing different stuff than they were before, and everyone's changing, people are moving. Like I think kind of the only constant now is change. Yeah, and that's how I feel about being in your 20s.
The only constant is change.
Is change. Yeah. Someone said, what advice would you give your past self prior to attending uni?
I feel like I kind of covered that a bit earlier, but basically just try to get some hobbies that are outside of just drinking, and like try and find people who are actually smart and interested in things that you're interested in. Because yeah, I think that could just be a good way to make friends outside of just the random collection of people that are either in your halls or in your classes.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of ways to make friends outside of those things, and I think that could be quite good. There's probably a lot of people, really interesting people that went to my uni that I just literally never met because I was too shy to do any of the socializing stuff outside of just drinking.
I think one thing I haven't really touched on in this episode yet is how I didn't like university. I feel like I should have brought that up as of yet. I loved the social side. I love being in the city, but the actual studying, as I said, I felt like during my course I was just getting taught stuff I already knew. I don't know whether that's just because I already like was in the social media industry, but most of my classes I felt like it was pointless. My mum, in first and second year when I was living at home, my mum would force me to go to every single lecture, all the 9 a.m. one. She would drive me to the train station. I mean, I'm very grateful that she did, but I would just sit at these lectures. As I said, my uni was very small. Quite a few times I've turned up to a lecture and it's just me and the lecturer, and then he's like, is anyone else coming? I'm like, don't think so.
Wow.
And then it's just
that must be so annoying for the lecturer as well.
Yeah, I know. He'd always be like, I've travelled from Milton Keynes. And I'm like, you're getting paid. I'm not getting paid to just sit here.
Yeah, true. You're paying.
Yeah. So I would go to every lecture and just feel like it was kind of a waste of time. And I would travel all this way to central London and like pay the train fare. Like, so I had my student loan to cover my train fare, but it only just covered it. So like I had no money. When I went to uni, I quit all my jobs that I was doing in my gap year to focus on university. So the only money I had coming in was a little bit of student loan, which was going on my train fare, and then any money I was making on social media, which at first was like nothing. It was like £10 a month. So I really like had no money. I was traveling into central London in the cold in winter, and I was sat there scrolling like on ASOS on my laptop because I was not learning anything. I would sit there and scroll on Twitter, scroll on ASOS. I would be posting my Instagram stories.
I feel like
class.
maybe that is one of the downsides of living at home during uni. It's so much more effort to get there. I guess it depends where you live in relation to the uni, but you're probably not that likely to live like right nearby. So yeah, I think if that was me, I probably would have gone to even less lectures, and that would have been bad for me. So I think actually that was one thing that was good for me about living on campus, was just being close to the library. Like I could just walk across, and it was a very beautiful campus, and could just walk across and go to the library that looked like Hogwarts, and that was just nice, like in final year, that I could actually do that. So
yeah, whereas I was like, I'm waking up in the dark. It's 7 a.m. I used to get the 7:10 train. It would take me an hour to get there. It would cost me £20. I would have to buy my lunch while I was there.
That is actually crazy. Like, how
and
did
I
you
would go
afford
in.
that?
I would go in for an hour and a half lecture.
Couldn't
So
you
I
just
travel-
do them online? Or is that because it's a seminar?
Seminar, yeah. So I'd travel all that way. Sometimes the lecturer wouldn't even turn up. I'd go there and I'd be like, well, I've just paid £20 to be in London. I might as well hang around. And so then I'd have to buy food. And then I get caught in the rush hour.
I think,
and then I'd have
doing your research on your uni, maybe like a bit more, like thinking about those things, like how big is the uni?
Thinking about the travel costs.
Yeah, travel costs, like thinking about all those little day-to-day things, I think is quite important.
Yeah, because in my head I was like, London, I'm going to be in London. But really it was just like, I'm on a train all the time. I'm commuting with all the office workers. I never got a seat on the train, so my back was always hurting. I would get there really early because I would have to get a lift from my mum before she started work, which I'm so grateful that she did give me a lift. But so she could only drop me on her way to work, which was super early. So even if I had a lecture at 2 p.m, I'd have to leave at 7 still to go in time, because I didn't have the money to pay for the car parking at the train station, because I literally, my student loan just covered my rail fare just about. And like I remember at first I think I was going in 3 days a week, and then one term they upped my classes to 4 days a week, and I just couldn't afford, like I had no money.
So you know what it's like to be a commuter now,
Yeah.
like from the outskirts into London.
Yeah, I was commuting every day, like little 19-year-old me in my like funny outfits with all the commuters. And at this time I was obsessed with the Pret subscription, so I was just like always carrying a hot chocolate. I always had hot chocolate spilled down me. I was just like standing up on the train and drinking my hot chocolate. Like that was my life. I was just like sat.
That is such a different experience to my experience. So yeah, it's just interesting. Yeah, we're very two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and I think by the end, because I was doing my social media by the end and it was doing well, and I was then earning enough money to actually move out. So during my third year, I moved out to this apartment because I could pay my rent all by myself. At that point, I was like, why am I going to uni? Because I don't need the degree to earn money, because I've already got the job. I've already got my dream job and I don't have the degree yet. I'm coming, and also during my third year I had to go to a different campus, which was in Greenwich, so it added an extra half an hour to my commute. It was in like zone 4, so my tube was like double the price. So I was just like, what am I doing here? Like every day it was like, I know there's so much worse things you could be doing with your life, but to me at that time I was just like, what am I doing? Like I'm spending my life on the train, I'm commuting to learn things I already know.
No wonder you didn't like it.
Yeah, and I was, but the reason
got there in the end.
The reason I kept going was because also the fact I knew I had borrowed all this money from the government to pay for my degree, and if you drop out you don't get the money back, you're still gonna owe them like 60 grand at the end. So I was like, okay, gotta keep going, and I like worked out my grades at the start of third year, and I was like, okay, I only need to pass to then pass my degree. I need to pass this year because I'd done better in the previous year. So I was like, okay, just trying to get through. And I had my laptop background as this quote from Pinterest that said, the only way out is through. And every day I woke up, I was like, the only way out of this is to go right through. Keep going. The only way out is to go through. And that was what I kept telling myself. And finally I made it through.
Yeah, and you will get through, and it does end eventually. Although I still have nightmares sometimes about that I am like haven't finished uni, and that I've been stuck at uni for 7 years and somehow I have to do another year.
Yeah, that was my worst nightmare, that I would fail and have to retake, because I would have retaken.
I've been out of uni for 10 years now and I still have those dreams. So I think that just shows how stressful uni can be. But yeah, I think everyone's uni experiences are so different, and yeah, I would say the main takeaway from this episode is to just think through all your decisions, try and make friends, try and not be shy, and don't rush.
You've got time. There's no reason to feel like you have to go to uni straight away. And definitely think about things, or you'll end up like me and not liking it. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Thank you for listening. Make sure you give us a follow or a subscribe wherever you're watching this on. And make sure you give our podcast socials a follow if you want to be involved in future episodes. Here are our socials as well. My social is at Grace Tutty, everywhere you can find me.
And I'm Josie V Tutty on Instagram, and Josie Tutty, I think, everywhere else. I need to check, but if you just type Josie Tutty, I'll probably come up.
Yeah. But I hope you're all doing well, and we will see you in next week's episode. Bye guys.